Here we are, episode 9, Life After Prison. Charlie sits down with the children to get their perspective. Jay discusses adjusting to life on the outside. Within months of the twins being released, their wives, Val and Viv, are arrested on money laundering charges. So within months of the twins being released. So that means they was on their ass. There hasn't been a moment of the government got what they wanted and then moved on with their life. Nah. They've been on a hunt for these people from the beginning, and it don't stop. And with that said, let's get into this episode 9, Life After Prison. They're going to talk to the kids. Are they trying to humanize the twins? I'm sure production has that in mind, but kids are part of it. Try not to vilify the children, because the children, they don't know no better. You know, they know what they know. They know what they're allowed to know and what they're able to figure out. Let's get to it. Life after prison.
I feel like people, when their fathers are in prison, like, give them that respect or anything. But I just feel like my dad is a good person, and I get a lot of my inspiration from him. Because, like, he's a good father, you know?
At 40 years old, Jay and Peter were now free men in the U.S. Something they hadn't been since they escaped to Mexico as fugitives nearly 20 years before. Finally, they were united with their families and could start a new life. But as seems to be the case with the twins, the consequences of their decision are always waiting around the corner. Just as Jay and Peter were starting to get used to another version of their life, everything changed again.
Even though the El Chapo case was well and truly done, the government hadn't forgotten about the Flores family. In April of 2021, the federal government brought criminal charges against Val and Viv for money laundering.
SWAT teams arrived at their home, searching the house, and took Val and Viv away. They were so aggressive, they even cuffed some of the children.
Yo, y'all wild and cuffing children and shit like that. Here's what's crazy, that you would think the government's like, yo, these dudes gave us, how Yayo was saying, El Chapo. You know what I'm saying? They gave us El Chapo. They did this for us. They did that for us. We didn't even have to help them. They had to go videotape or audio tape the calls themselves. They looked out for us. We should, look out for them. Nah, man, government been on top of their heads since they picked them up. That's an abusive relationship right there.
With the permission of their parents and many conversations over the phone with the kids, I asked if they wanted to share what things have been like for them on tape. I got them all together and we sat on the floor and started talking.
All right, let's hope you didn't exploit them, Charlie. We're watching you.
Have you ever kind of sat and spoke like this before all together?
No. Do you want to talk about this? I think for me, just especially with like everything that happened recently, it's kind of like a PTSD moment. I didn't want them to see me panic and be scared. And so I was just trying to be like, everything's gonna be okay, It was just really difficult.
They just came in, handcuffed everybody, but me and her, and she's been through this before. And so I just kind of tried to listen to her. So it was hard for me because I never seen my mom be treated like that.
Final answer, I'm going to blame the production for the audio issues on this show. I'm going to blame the production. I'm going to blame the mixer, whoever mixed the audio, whatever you recorded with, whoever mixed it, it's just horrible. It ain't just the twins. It ain't just the girls. It's the kids too, and it's not the kids' fault. It's the production's fault.
It was hard for me because I never seen my mom be treated like that.
It was hard for him because he never got to see his mom treated like that.
And especially my dad being handcuffed. I just didn't see it. I think I'll see that again.
Dad being handcuffed, you didn't think he'd see that again?
And I just got me scared. It reminded me of when he was in a visit, always coming out being handcuffed.
That's Pete's children talking. Their son, the one...
That's what he said. It reminded him of a visit. His father always come out handcuffed.
One who was born the first year Pete was in prison, and the youngest daughter, who you heard in the last episode, as well as Pete's oldest. She lived with Pete and Viv on and off in Mexico. Unlike the other children, she knew some of what their life was like before prison. We won't name any of the children or give any details about them, so as to protect their identities. We'll pick back up with Pete and Viv's son and youngest daughter, talking about what it was like to visit their dad in prison.
Was he always handcuffed when you visited?
Well, like when they opened the door, they would take it off right there.
There's specific procedures, like they made this rule where we could only hug for like 30 seconds, and then we gotta stay like far apart from each other. So it would be on the back of the wall, and then we would be more out towards him because there's like safety issues. He couldn't go to the vending machines because remember it's like a box room with 2 vending machines and a couple chairs and probably like 3 tables and then the guard. So they wouldn't be able to go by the vending machine or by the microwave and then it was just like, it didn't feel like, because going, like, we went to a lot of visiting rooms and I remember that one, I was just like, I was so uncomfortable the whole time I went to go visit him. And I remember he didn't have his uniform on like this one day, and I never saw him like with his uniform on, and he was just wearing a white plain t-shirt and his gray sweats, and I remember being like, oh my gosh, yeah, that was just like our normal, like we had to live with these specific procedures of taking off our shoes, hair, our buttons in our hair, putting them in the little thing, a box.
It's a lot for a kid. Kid goes to visit a parent in prison, just want to hug them, and you got to go through all these procedures and take the barrettes out your hair and have all your bags searched and your pockets emptied and this, that, and the other. But it is what it is. Kids do time with their parents. A lot of parents don't seem to notice.
I used to think I was like the luckiest person because I never had to take my shoes off. I think it was because I was probably youngest, so I never had to take them off and put them back on. But as I got older, I had to do it.
I remember like every weekend, the guards would be like, we'll see you next weekend. And we'll make sure to remind them to fill up the vending machines.
I feel like a lot of time, my dad would try to fit in like months of parenting into like a weekend visit for like 8 hours and less than that. And so a lot of the time I felt like it was just like a constant like lecture, and it was just like constant, but like in real life he was just trying to like make up.
What the? But I'm about to put on some headphones. That's how bad to me this audio is. I'm hoping y'all can hear it.
Felt like it was just like a constant like lecture, and it was just like constant, but like in real life he was just trying to like
basically a long preparation phase for a quick visitation phase.
I think with us too, I think with Val and I think that Peter and Junior are really guilty of just trying to just teach us something, just or make us feel better, and being these positive people in our lives, even though kind of everything is crumbling, right under us. But, just trying to be that positive reinforcement in our lives, even though they're sitting there in prison. And I think that's where we see that the decision that they made, they went in there with their whole hearts, and they knew that this was going to be the best thing for us. So
I remember
it's the oldest.
I would write stuff down in my school notebook to, if I thought about something to tell my dad, then I would like rip it out of my notebook and I would bring it to go see him, because I was like, because then I would forget.
Pete's daughter had so much to talk to her dad about that she kept a list. She wrote everything down so that she wouldn't forget. She'd have to wait a whole week between visits, and even though Pete was able to call home during the week, he only had a 300-minute phone allowance each month.
If I remember something on Monday, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's not gonna have enough minutes to talk about this conversation. Because we got only 300 minutes each month. Especially in like November's, it would be hard because all my siblings' birthdays were in November. So then it would be like, 5 minutes each week? Yeah, it would be like at least 5 minutes each week.
300 minutes sounds like a lot, but when you break it down, it's 69 minutes a week. That's less than 10 minutes a day. And that time has to be split between the entire family. To make it even harder, standard policy in federal US prisons limits phone calls to a maximum of 15 minutes at a time, and you have to wait at least an hour between calls.
I remember my dad would say, I'm going to give you an off day. I was like, what is that? Because I knew that he felt guilty because we were there every single weekend. But then I remember I was like, no, I want to go and see you. Like, I would skip every friend's birthday party and be like, no, I'm sorry, I can't. Or I would skip my sports or my dance events because I'm like, no, I'm going to go see my dad. Like, this is my time. And as much as, like, you know how, like, people say, like, self-care night or, like, alone time? Like, him just talking to us and playing, like, with us or, like, watching movies or anything was just, like, a nice unload of, like, the whole week. Because the family felt complete every time we sat down together. And even though it wasn't the way that we wanted to be together, we were still together.
It was always, like, a weird transition to go from, like, being with our mom, like, in a completely different place, and, like, going to see my dad. And it was, like, always, like, really living, like, two separate worlds. And I think sometimes, especially as we were getting older, it was a lot harder because we were, like, oh, like, we have friends. Like, we want to, like, do things. And it was, like, but we had to be there, like, with our dad. And so I think that battle of, like, yeah, I still choose to come. And I remember my mom, she's like, you are going to see your dad. That's your dad. And, like, you have to, like, spend time with, like, this, like, his time with you guys.
Having friends was a continuous problem. There was always a risk that through the children, the twins' identity and location could be exposed. Pete's youngest daughter was once forced to leave her school almost immediately when the family found out that her friend's dad worked as one of Pete's prison guards. The kids could never get too close to anyone.
I would tell people, like, I moved from somewhere, and they'd be like, why? I don't know, my parents are very adventurous, you know? And then when I said that I'm, like, born there, they're like, how? Why are you here then? Oh, then I have to, like, figure out something.
I had this, like, responsibility to, like, keep this secret. I thought when I was there, I was, like, protecting my family. Something bad would, like, happen. And so it was always, like, a...
Did you feel you had to lie a lot?
Yeah.
And, like, hide your life? Yeah.
Yes.
You're all like,
That's a lot for a shorty. And, you know, you kind of are protecting your family, you know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't a regular family. This was a family in the crosshairs, and a lot of people's crosshairs.
in your head, so you feel that you had to lie.
Yeah, I just remember lying a lot at school. They're like, where's your dad? I'm like, he's doing work in California. Or like some
there was
state.
always, like, a story to be told.
I remember we were in a store, and this guy came up to us and asked us a question randomly. He's like, where's your dad? And I would be like, he's in New York right now. He's a construction worker, and just, yeah, that's where he is. You know?
I always get nervous.
We always had to get, like, we had to make sure that our stories kind of, like, connect. Because if one said something different, we all had to make sure that it matches, because they'll get, like, suspicious.
I would always get nervous if I said, like, my dad lived somewhere, and then someone happened to have lived somewhere at some point in their lives, and they asked me about it. And I'd be like, oh, like, I actually have no idea what the neighborhood is called.
I think that when we switched schools, it was difficult in some way, but you couldn't find a real friend because you're going to keep switching.
Yeah.
So you're never going to find that real friend.
I feel like even if we did have friends and we created this friendship, a part of me knew that if we're going to have to, like, ghost them somehow, some way.
I think it was like that for, like, all of us. Like, we all were like, I would hate talking to parents. Even now, I hate talking to parents. They just ask too many questions.
My old school, I was there for, like, the long time. And then when we had to leave, I just, like, didn't feel like going. Because I've changed schools, I think, 4 times already. I just don't feel like doing that again.
That's Jay's youngest son. Jay and Val have 2 sons, and the youngest was less than 2 months old when Jay went into prison. The other just a toddler.
baby, the kids are right here playing, my love.
You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call. This call is from an inmate at a federal prison.
Yes, so Daddy, thank you for your book. Look at some of your book. Thank you.
Baby?
Hey, love,
baby.
How are you?
Hi, baby. My babies are there?
Yeah, hold on. He wants to tell you something, okay? Hold on. Thank you.
You're welcome, Daddy. How are you, mijo?
I'm sitting on the book.
Yeah? Mijo, how's school, Daddy? You like school?
Okay.
Daddy?
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you.
I love you. I miss you, Dad.
Hello?
Baby?
What, baby?
He's funny, love. He sounds so good, love.
I know. Oh, you okay? Say hi, Daddy. Come here. Say hi, Daddy. Hi, Daddy. Say hi, Daddy. Hi, Daddy.
Hi, Daddy. Hi, baby. I love you.
Oh, yeah.
Love you, Dad.
Jay had a sound of desperation in his voice right there to talk to his family. It's very clear that with these twins, their family is extremely important, because that was a sound of desperation getting on the phone with his child. Yeah, I mean, this has been a very soft season. Not much criminality involved in this season. A lot of heartwarming, cinnamon toast crunchish, warm morning type vibes in this season. They haven't given me much to talk shit about this season. This is my biggest complaint, you know what I'm saying, to the production. Y'all ain't give me enough to be like, who does that type of shit? Huh? Nah, it's been all unicorns and cotton candy.
Jay's youngest didn't even know his own father's real name until he got out of prison. When prison officers would use Jay's initials MF, Margarito Flores, his youngest had no idea what they meant.
Yeah, I remember the officer would say, like when we would enter the prison, they would say his name. I was like, why is it say MF? I was really confused. And he was like, it's just a name that they gave me when I entered. So I just didn't really think about that. I just remember him telling me that he was gonna come home, and I didn't really understand. So I was kind of just like listening in shock.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially because you'd only known.
Yeah, I only knew him from from the visit. So
what was it like when you actually exchanged?
Yeah,
you weren't used to that, right?
I just felt like really different.
Yeah, in what way?
It's just like a way different environment and different people, and him just being able to like hug you or just be with you.
It was a big adjustment when the twins came home. Jay's youngest son had never known his dad outside of prison. Neither had Pete's youngest son and daughter.
When he came home, I remember him just he was mesmerized by everything. And I was teaching him how to use a phone and how to do this, And I was so shocked that he was home that I would just want to I would look at him. I couldn't believe that he was home. I just I remember him sitting on the couch and I was it's so weird. That's just not normal. He came and said goodnight, and I just got so freaked out because I was oh my gosh.
I remember when he first came home, I spent months just wanting to be there and followed him around doing anything.
We got a haircut together at a bike shop. Bikes were my dad's favorite thing. Now every day I go downstairs and then I see my dad with his coffee, dark coffee, his daily devotional and his Bible, with his phone and his pajamas because it's in the morning. So it's crazy. I get to wake up to that now.
Different
I just
world,
feel my dad did such a great job. Even in a small visiting room being watched by a guard. My mom and dad put a lot of time into us, and so it's my Theo and my aunt. They put a lot of time into their kids. That's a resemblance to this family and how good of parents they are.
I think it was a good thing that they kept their children in constant communication with each other. You know what I'm saying? Those kids needed each other in that situation. For whatever may transpire during the story between Jay and Val and Pete and Vivi and the drama about this, that, and the other, their kids have a reverence for one another. For their Theo, for their Tia, for their cousins. That's dope.
They could put the most important things aside, but their kids are just their main part to their family.
I think it's also actually a lot about you all sat here, because I think your parents have done a great job, but it says a lot about you too. It's not just your parents,
they got in the game for themselves. They got out the game for their kids.
What's inside you too. The fact that you can sit and talk like this, and it's really mature.
Yeah, I think that it's not we shouldn't forget about going to visit our parents every weekend, and it's something that we should continue to remember, because it was part of our childhood, and there were a lot of like life lessons and memories and experiences that, although it wasn't in the best environment, it was still important. There's a lot of parents out there who we probably were able to see our dads more than other kids, and we were lucky enough to have like the experiences we had, because we still had great times. Like, we would watch movies, we would play board games, and we would talk about like TV shows or like music and what songs we were listening to, and so, or like how our school day was. And we should be thankful that we were able to have those, because a lot of other children don't.
I find it...
Now, who knows if it's for the cameras or the microphones, but well-adjusted, grateful, humble children.
amazing that you're so like grateful for the, you know, the way you're talking is like, you know, even what you just said, you're like, we're blessed to have that. Is there any part of you, any of you, do you feel angry at all? And I think anger's okay, you know, it's not a bad thing. You know, I just wonder if any of you feel anger at all.
I just like, I'm not angry with my dad ever did in his past, but I just feel like I was angry for the time. But I feel like every moment was just like a blessing. But I would never be angry at my dad for something like that.
How about you?
I think during the time and during all those years I was angry, and like I remember I would cry every time, like every Sunday after we would have to leave. But like now reflecting back on it, I'm thankful, because like it could be way worse. We have such a like great connection to our parents, and we have so much love for each other, and I'm just thankful for all that.
Yeah, I think like growing up, like there probably was like a point where like, I don't know, like I feel like when I was younger, I learned about everything. It was kind of like, oh, why would they do that? And I didn't really like understand at first, and like sometimes I would be like angry, but then I would just feel like, at least I have them, and then it's just really changed the anger into like you're grateful that like at least like they're here.
Are you glad they actually did what they did? Are you glad that they did go to prison so that they don't live like what you've heard?
Yeah, like sometimes I just think like if they didn't, like we all couldn't be here, and it's just like that really like changes it.
Even they know if their parents didn't do what they did, they probably all wouldn't be there. Maybe none of them would be there.
Or if like they don't turn themselves in and they have to like be able, the police have to go get them and they get caught one time, and for that it's just like life probably. So
You'd always live in that
yeah.
right?
Even though the twins are home, the kids have lived in fight and flight their whole lives, always on edge, in constant stress and fear. Living in this heightened state of trauma isn't something that just goes away overnight.
It was like a rush panic, and you just hear like the words like they're coming.
You ever like kind of almost listen out for sounds?
Even like a ring on the doorbell. And I like have gone to like friends' house, like someone rings the doorbell and they just like walk up to them like, what are you doing? Aren't you gonna hide? Like
I
why?
remember,
Like who's here?
I remember us just like we'll be eating at dinner at our table, or like just being anywhere in the house, and I hear a doorbell, and my mom and my dad would just like just don't go towards the door, just hide, and then they'll go look and see if it was anyone. And yeah, when I would go to my friend's house and someone ring the door, they just go straight up and just open it. I was like, I was so confused.
Even if like you're in the car, you see someone like a car following you for too long.
So like when my dad was in prison, when my mom would hear a doorbell, all three of us would just look at each other, and then we'll go, and me and my sister would go, and my mom would open it, and end up being like a package delivered. And it's crazy because like we had to live through that.
A lot of tension. They had a lot of tension coming up.
Anxiety.
I feel like it kind of still ruins my relationship with like my friends now, because I can't like have them come over and be like, I have to like tell my parents like, you know, my friend's coming over, what's your name gonna be, and you know, like just like kind of like stay on like just don't talk about anything about our life.
I feel like it definitely separated you from like getting super close to anyone, because like there's always a part that like you couldn't share. So I think that's why we're so close, like as cousins.
Here's the thing too, they only have their perspective. We know more as adults about their parents' case really than they do. We don't know their perspective they have. But as they get older, they're going to learn more about this story, the ins and outs of it. You know what I'm saying? If they care to. You know what I mean? They probably don't give a shit by that point. Like, listen, I got my family, who cares?
And siblings.
I think after everything that we've been through, we still have like this paranoia in the back of our head, just of everything. And a part of me, it feels like I'm a little prepared of if anything does happen again. But them being home, it's just like a little more like, you gotta like calm down a little, you know? And I think my dad being home, I could like, you know, go to sleep at night knowing that like I'm safe with him. And I could go to sleep knowing that my mom's asleep and that she's okay because he's home.
As for the twins, coming out of prison was a fresh start. Finally, they could be with their wives, their children, and each other. No more yelling through doors, no more communicating through wives, no more 15-minute phone calls and visits monitored by guards, no more shackles. They were free.
What was it like when you first saw Pete out of prison? What was the moment?
Well, we had spent so much time apart that I was so nervous. It was emotional for sure.
What kind of emotions?
Just like every type of like sadness, happiness at the same time. I'm still a little bit shocked at the fact that we were actually back together again. It also was, I felt like there was a void for sure. And I think that hurt. The fact that, you know, I'm seeing my brother and I'm like, it's everything's still the same, but we're just a little bit different now. You know, 12 years, I left him when I was 28. You know, now I'm 40.
It's like a lifetime, 28 and 40.
And I have those same memories, those same thoughts, but I know that we live two different lives and now we're not seeing things the same. You know, we've been to different situations and like even the fact that he has a son now, I mean, right? That he was a part of it and that I wasn't. You know, I got to see my nephew, but even that part, right? Where just different things, I could feel the void for sure. And that hurt me. It's something I'm never going to get back, right?
Do you think you just both really changed?
I think as you get older, everyone changes.
Yeah.
And as you're growing apart, you know, you guys, when you guys were growing in unison as a team. Once they separated you guys, now you're going into your own man. Not the mastermind or the third, you know, person, which is the two of you together, which is its own entity. Now y'all was growing by yourselves.
Simple, like, well, it's not simple. I think like when you have a life partner, right? And you're growing old together, you guys are changing. And sometimes I think that could be a little bit hard. I realized that today, like with my brother, because if you're growing together, you know? You guys are getting older and, you know, things change, right? If your life partner is with you, then they get it. But if they're not, now you're not the same person anymore. That's kind of hard to adjust, especially if you have expectations or you know people to be a certain way. And I always say, like, I'm not the same person I went in prison. If I was, then I failed. I feel like I'm more mature. I think I'm a better man overall.
I'm definitely a lot wiser. Jay he's grown into like everything a woman could possibly want in a man. I think when it comes to a husband, when it comes to a father, when it comes to a best friend, he's matured so much and he's learned, like he said, always through his hardships and always through struggles. I love the person that he is today and I love the person he was yesterday, but there's just something so different about him. And when Jay and Peter saw each other for the first time, I was there and it was emotional for everybody, including our children, because we're such a close-knit family. Yeah. But they were like kind of like looking at each other across the room at times, and I would catch them strangely like looking at each other and just trying to figure each other out.
Do you recall that?
Yes, I do recall that looking because I saw my brother in Zoom, and of course, anyone that does know us, in between me being home, there's a lot of arguments. A lot of arguments. That didn't change, but seeing there was like almost like I'm seeing him be a father and a husband again, like something I haven't saw. And in a way, kind of seeing myself, and it was kind of like, wow, a good feeling like I got to see this again. I got to see my brother. I got to see myself. You know, my kids, they don't even remember what it was like to see me and my brother together. So it was, for my baby, it was a shocker. Like, he was like, wow, you guys are twins, you know?
Yeah, because we've never seen you two together. What was the first thing you did when you saw each other?
So he was coming to the door. And first the kids came. And I knew that he was kind of lagging behind because he was nervous. So the kids ran in and like saw me and were like, oh my God. And he was like making small steps, almost like if you're gonna see your wedding bride right for the first time. That nervousness, that butterflies in your stomach, he looked different to me. I probably looked different to him as well, right? And like we didn't say much. We whispered in each other's ear, like, I love you, I think, like, and we just hugged each other tight and didn't say nothing but just cried and stood there. It was quiet and I could hear everyone else being emotional. And I remember just looking around, looking at everybody in tears and thinking, wow, you know, all the kids were crying, and our family that was there, it was surreal, like to be able to hold them again and after all we've been through. And it's like, this is the moment we waited for, right? For such a long time. And it was a feeling of fulfillment as well.
Like, that you made it.
For sure, that we made it, that we were just there. It lasted for like a long time, just being there with them and just, you know, it was emotional.
Life after prison wasn't as simple as just picking up where they left off. At sentencing, Judge Ruben Castillo said that the twins would always have a life sentence, that there wouldn't be a day that goes by that they wouldn't have to look over their shoulder. But it's not only the danger of if the cartel will come for them that makes adjusting to life after prison a challenge. Jay and Pete had to reinvent themselves once again. What does a normal life look like for people that have a past like the twins?
So it's weird, even though I'm living this normal life, I can't have normal friends, I can't do normal things.
I think that a lot of people that are normal, they want to know your story. They want to know, like, everything about you.
It makes it a little bit hard. Like, if I didn't know them before, it's just like...
What do you say if
why
somebody
talk
says...
to them now? If you didn't know them before, you know what I'm saying? Like, why talk to them now?
What do you do? Because that's a real common question.
Right now, I have a job, so right now, this is what I do. And
what people say.
And that profession is going to be like, oh, this is what I do. And like, oh, okay.
What brought you here?
So I have a script where I say, my wife's family lives here.
What did you used to do?
And where do they live? And who are they? And they mind your business. Mind your business. People ask too many questions.
Real estate. So I'm not from here. Like, yeah, I just, you know, my wife's family, we just moved here.
Yeah. It must be hard because you've got to constantly edit yourself.
I guess people can't even imagine the afterlife, right? And I heard even regular people who've been to prison kind of shy away from saying those things. And where you been for the last 10 years? Like, what you been doing? And it's like, wow. Sometimes the easiest thing to do is say, I was in prison.
Jay told me this great story about the first time he went to a bar since coming out of prison. He was with his nephew, his older brother Armando's son.
So it was a new experience for me. And we go to this bar, a bunch of young kids, you know, probably younger than 21, college kids. So I'm like, I don't want to make it seem like I'm a chaperone, so I'm like, just trying to fit in. And I look and I see that there's like these 3 guys. And I'm like, oh my God. They've been to prison. I could tell.
How?
Just their demeanor kind of stiff, kind of like, they don't belong there. They're like in the young crowd. So I'm saying that gap between, they're going back to what they missed in my head. And I told my nephew, I said, wow, look at those guys, they're convicts. And he's like, get out of here. Why do you say that? And I was like, I could tell just by the demeanor. And he was like, no. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, how would we know? I said, oh, easy. I said, can I have 3 beers? Then they're standing there and I tap them. I said, excuse me. I said, how long you been home? And he's like, excuse me? I said, how long you been home? He said, is that noticeable? I said, yeah. He said, I've been home for a year. He's been home for 8 months and he's been home for a month. And I said, yeah, I could tell. He's like, wow, how do you know? I said, experience. And he's like, wow, you're just making me see something. And I just ended up starting to talk to him. And I called my nephew over. I said, hey, this is so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so. They just came home. And he's like, well, Uncle, how'd you know? And I said, it's just out of experience, but just tell me one thing. Do I seem off to you? He's like,
you're not going to get that from your nephew. You're only going to get that from them 3 guys. Your nephew ain't going to know the difference.
He's like, no, not at all. I was like, okay, great. Thank you. I'm doing good then. Because that was one of the things we talked about the most was I going to be able to like just fit in again
and not feel uncomfortable or awkward or feel like you couldn't, keep up with what's happening.
So I would read a lot. Like I would know how to use certain electronics through watching Wired. I would read Wired or these tech TV shows or whatever the case is. And sometimes I would be like, I'm having trouble. And I'll be like, oh, you could do this. She's like, how the fuck do you know?
Did you have access to information? Did you know what was going on?
Well, thanks to my wife. Yeah. I would literally, I had 80 subscriptions for a magazine.
For magazines, yeah.
And 80 subscriptions for magazines.
And I had
read every
6 of the major newspapers.
The New York Post, Chicago
Tribune, Chicago Sun-Times, New York Daily News, and just I would get all these newspapers. So I would look at everything, especially it helped when I was locked down. It kept me.
Yeah, and he would even
actually to this day, if you look at my phone, I actually try to keep up with all those magazines that I.
Do you?
Yeah. Look.
Cosmopolitan.
Yeah. So this is I sign up and if you look at my magazines.
Vogue, Esquire, Newsweek, Forbes, Rolling Stone, Fortune, Motor Trend, New York Magazine, New Yorker, Bloomberg Business Week, Wired, US Week, Billboard, Car and Driver, Fast Company, Elle, Vanity Fair, People, New York City Live.
I never had a normal life. So people don't understand, I never had a bank account. I had a lot of money, probably didn't fit in the bank, but I never had a bank account. So getting used to these things and I was able to take my kids to school. With them, I attended, my first parent teacher conferences. And I'll tell you, as intelligent as I think that I was or what other people might think, I have no knowledge of what to do or how to act or how to be. Because I'm so experienced with so many things in life, but except for the simple things that people might take for granted on an everyday basis. Taking your kids to school, going to the bank or how things work. I practice sending emails to teachers. I'm scared of the things you do every day. She made me take the kids to the doctor by myself. I called her.
Booster shot.
I called her 100 times. Mm-hmm. And I'm like,
you got this.
You got this. She sent me to the bank one time by myself.
Panic. Wait, what?
What?
What do I do?
I can't say no to her because I'm like, I know this is a test. I know she's preparing me and I don't want to let her down. And I'm learning still, I know I have a lot of cleaning to do and keeping things in order. I do ask her, how important You know, I'm like, how important is this to you? And she'll be like, everything's real important, right? But like, how important is it for the kids' clothes to be ironed all the time?
I think so.
Even if it's like basketball clothes, it's like important. So we have those conversations, and it's like, I realize what it took to be by herself for all those years. I see it.
You know, unfortunately, for a little while, y'all gonna understand that a whole lot better than you did before. You're gonna understand what it's like to be alone with them in this time that Viv and Val are going to prison. It's not 12 years, but it's a little time for you guys to figure out, you know, as much as you appreciate them now, you're gonna appreciate them a whole lot more, because now you playing both roles. The tides have turned and the roles have reversed.
And people might think, wow, it's obvious. It's the things that we take for granted every day that people don't realize that if you're able to take your kids to school, or you're able to come home a little early one day and pick them up and surprise them, those things matter, because there's plenty of people around the world that don't get that chance.
Just as Jay and Pete were starting to get used to yet another new version of their life, everything changed again.
When the feds came to the house again, for me and for Viviana, it was scary. And I think that the way that they came to the house was very disturbing.
Bullies, ganga.
When I seen them surround my house, and they came in with the SWAT team and army garb and shields and helmets and AR-15s, I couldn't believe that they came in. They, you know, were ready to knock the door down. When I seen them coming, they were like just holding each other's shoulder, and it looked like a bunch of soldiers in front of my house, like if my kids are playing Call of Duty.
No, they gas themselves up. The police gas themselves up. They'd be like, yo, we got to spend the budget on all of this tech and all of these tanks and all this body armor and all the, they think they're the military, and you just overdo it just to feel like you're doing something.
Marching up the street to come to the house, and I remember running to my son's room, waking them up and telling them, the feds are here, the feds are here, get up. And we're talking about children that are not accustomed to this upbringing. They're not. They were sheltered. We put our children in a bubble because we didn't want this cartel to affect them in any way. We didn't want them to have to ever go through any of this.
They went through it. And it wasn't the cartel that did it. It was the U.S. government that came through and bullied your children.
I ran down the stairs and I opened the door. I didn't want them to break it. And I just right away put my hands up and put my hands behind my back. And I think, I'm like, okay, I'm okay, I'm fine. You could take me now. And it wasn't until they walked into my house and they had AR-15s to my children.
That's crazy.
And they cuffed my son. And he's a minor. At that point, it's like, as a mother, I think you just go into survival mode. And I feel like
you've been there before.
I don't remember. I kind of blacked out. What happened.
You know, the SWAT team came for Valerie, and she fought them. They dislocated her shoulder. They mistreated her.
You know, I just wanted them to not cuff my son because he doesn't know this life. He has no clue what this life consists of.
When the feds came, right, I had to spend 2 days in jail. And I didn't even care about anything, but I just didn't want to be with people. I was so scared. So I asked the CO there, and I asked him if he can put me in a room by myself because of the fear that I have just always lingering in my head. So they put me in a room by myself. I was just watching everybody from the little window. This is so scary. Never can I ever want to be in a position where I'm with other people that know who my family is. I remember, Peter telling me through the years how he felt in like a prison cell. And I was just like looking around like, I can't believe it's me. And then I took his advice, and I remember like things he would tell me. I did clean like the toilet seat, the sink. And then I saved like a little bit of my food. Just because.
Those are the lessons he taught her. Save a little bit of food, clean up your area.
I listened to, everything that he went through with all my heart. Everything that we would talk about on our weekends, or, just try to be more than a wife, be his friend, and just hear him, what it was like for him to be there. I just like grasped onto little things that he would tell me that he did. And it was just an ugly time. I got sick from drinking the water. The water was terrible. And I was just like thinking to myself, like, I was so worried about the kids.
The reason why we chose to not tell our children who their dad was because we wanted to shelter them. And we didn't want them to go through this. Because this is the same exact thing that Peter and Jay went through when they were kids. And the whole reason why they felt like they wanted to like end this, and they wanted to like end this cycle, and they didn't want their children to go through anything that they ever went through. And it's kind of like, why did we do this? Like, look what we did to our kids.
And those cops, they don't have no regard. They don't care how they scarred your children. They blame you. They say, nah, this was your fault. You got them into this life of crime, right? Until one of those guys gets popped off for some filthy shit that they did. Now they want everybody to take them into consideration. It's plain as day. After 12 years that the guy served, after all the testimony, after all of the cooperation, after all the snitching, after all the ratting, after all the giving of information, after all the dangerous 8 months in Mexico, the 8 months sitting at a desk here, giving them information, all of that, the U.S. government did not have the slightest, smallest ounce of regard or gratitude or anything from the Flores twins. They just attacked them from day one, all the way to the end. Their goodwill ended once they were separated. The only goodwill they got was that they were put together at the beginning. But once they were separated, that was it. And here we are in 2023 going into 2024. And that family's still a target of the United States government as well as the cartel. The United States government been on the Flores family's ass, and it doesn't seem like they're trying to let up. It's a dirty thing to run up in people's house with ARs and lock up kids and stuff like that. Yes, they're alive. They weren't murdered in the midst of the cartel split. Yes, it's been 20 years since this whole saga started. It hasn't ended yet. They're alive, but a lot of suffering that they've gone through. You know what I'm saying? A lot of things backfired for them, and they didn't get no help. They didn't get no grace from the United States government. That's for sure. And I'm sure some of you think they don't deserve it. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure some of you think that Chapo deserves it, which is weird. Some of y'all think Maya deserves it. We pick and choose as humans. We pick and choose who we feel like deserves grace. You know what I mean? I tell you who did deserve grace: the children. They have nothing to do with none of it. They are a product of the decisions of their fathers and mothers.